What's going on, fight fans? Welcome back to Punch Ons, and yeah, we've got some dogs barking in the background here at the moment. Got some cars doing some burnouts and other weird things up and down the road, but that doesn't matter because this weekend we've got the UFC. It is back. We have got UFC Perth over here in the motherland in Australia. We got a big card stacked with Aussie talent and prospects, headlined by a massive fight with big implications in the light heavyweight division. We got Carlos Ulberg taking on Dominick Reyes. This is going to be a massive fight. I'm so keen to break down all of these fights and especially this big main event. There's a couple of sleepers throughout the card as well. I think it's a decent card. Any Aussie fight fan is going to be happy with the fan service they've given us for this card. It should be amazing. Now, not the most stacked card in terms of name value or huge stylistically, epic fights, but it's a good solid fight night, and it's got a meaningful main event. So I'm happy, boys. We get to watch a good Aussie fight card. The Aussie fans are always hectic, and I don't expect them to be any different in this fight. So overall, I'll give the card a 6.5 out of 10 in terms of overall hype and action and big names and stuff. It's obviously not up there on a 8 or 9 or 10 echelon with some of those huge pay-per-view names with cards with massive names on it. But as far as a slap together Aussie fight night, it's pretty decent. And then the reason it's decent is because we've got good up-and-coming Aussie fighters. It shows that the Aussie MMA scene is the healthiest it's ever been. We've got 2 champs in there at the moment, and we've got a lot of good fellas up and coming. And it's a chance on this card for these boys to impress and take advantage of this big moment, because we don't want to be like Canada and just stuff up all our opportunities. We want to be more like the French who got it done, and the Mexicans who are stepping up in their recent hometown cards. It's been sick to have this little run of kind of themed UFC cards. We had the UFC Paris card, which was heavily French themed. Then we had the UFC Noche, which is the celebration of Mexican Independence Day, I think it is, and Mexican fighters in general. And now we've got this big stacked Aussie card with Ulberg versus Reyes. Now, it's getting brought down a couple of points due to the lack of big fights and also the lack of an Aussie in the main event. That's a little bit of a shame. We haven't really been blessed with all that many amazing main events in the Australia cards lately, but they do always end up being a good card. So I can see this one being decent. 6.5 out of 10 in terms of hype. I'm expecting that to be over-delivered on and for this card to be a decent card. Moving on to the punch on of the week. This is the fight on the card that I'm most looking forward to in terms of, action and the hype surrounding it, and certain fighters always add a few bonus points like they will this weekend. Look, it's very easy to just say that the main event is the best fight of the card and it's the punch on of the week. And that would be probably true most of the time, but that's a little bit boring. I think there's definitely some sleeper fights on this card, and the one that I'm keeping my eye on is Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Taveras. I think both of these boys are decent, and I think that they're going to want to have a scrap in this fight. I reckon we're going to see Jack Jenkins, hopefully if he's back to his best, getting after it, and Taveras is game, and he's got a chin, and he's got the will to win. So I'll talk more about how I think this fight's going to go later in the predictions, but this is a fight that I reckon is going to live up to a Punch On's recommendation. It's my Punch On of the week. Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Taveras, currently sitting as the co-main, but I'm not sure if it'll close as that. But yeah, looking forward to this one. My lock of the week has been cooking. I've got the last 2 out of 2 official locks of the week that I've done. Never really officially lock one in my first predictions card, but I'm lucky I didn't, because it probably would have been Michelle Pereira. So that one doesn't count. Didn't officially lock it in. But my 2 locks of the week so far have cashed, my official ones. We had Modestus Bukauskas to lay a beat down on Paul Craig, and that happened very obviously. And then last week we had Silva, Neto BJJ to beat Claudio Puelles. Joaquim Silva, I think his name is. And even though I had him by KO, he ended up getting done by decision. They still cashed the lock. So lock of the weeks have been good. My lock this week is Navajo Sterling. He's taken on Rodolfo Bellato at middleweight or light heavyweight, I think it is. I think it's light heavyweight, but it's another example of I'm not all that confident or or stoked about the guy I'm putting the lock on this week. I'm just really low on their opponent, and that's what happened in the last few fights. I was pretty low on Paul Craig. Even though I like him, I knew he was going to lose. I was pretty low on Claudio Puelles, and I didn't like him, and I knew he was going to lose, even though he nearly won. It's the same this week. I'm not a complete worshipper of Navajo Sterling. I don't know that he's the real deal, but I do know that Rodolfo Bellato he hasn't got a lot of heart. I'll talk more about that later as well. But yeah, my lock of the week's Navajo Sterling here. Shout out to maybe there's a couple of other ones that could have been pretty locky. Like I'm feeling pretty good about Tom Nolan. Maybe I'm feeling all right about Jack Jenkins. Jake Matthews could have been an option there. Even Jonathan Micallef, I'm starting to feel pretty good about. But we're going to go with Navajo Sterling. Dog of the week this week is Cam Rowston. I believe in the rest of the vid I might have referred to him as Rowston. So, sorry, Cam. I'll be roasting you if you do lose this week, as you're my dog of the week. So Cam Rowston, coming off a performance on the Contender Series that made him look pretty good, going up against a blockhead who's nothing special, and I'll give him a good chance. He's a decent $2 something roughie. I'm going to lock in Cam Rowston as my dog of the week. All right, let's get into these predictions then. UFC Fight Night, Ulberg versus Reyes. Official Punch Ons predictions. Let's go. First fight on the card, we have Brando Pericic versus Ellison. Apparently two dudes. I wasn't too sure when I first read their names. This is Brando Pericic versus Ellison. First bloke I've seen called Elisha. But there you go. At 265, some big boys opening up the card here. Don't know much about either, except that Pericic is from CKB, which is a fairly common occurrence on this card this weekend. And I like that team, and he's probably been placed here for a reason. He's a clear favourite at $1.55 to Ellison's $2.46. However, interestingly, a majority of people are picking Ellison on Tapology, and a lot of those by TKO. Both guys are on debut in the UFC here. The UFC, the multi-trillion-dollar, bloody billion-dollar company, hasn't been able to find a photo of them, but I'm sure they'll get it sorted by fight week. They usually do. I think this one's going to be over by a quick KO. I'm going to go with Pericic getting it done by round 1 or 2 TKO after dropping him bad. Let's keep moving. Second fight is Luana Carolina versus Michelle Montague at women's bantamweight, I believe. Luana Carolina got flatlined by Molly McCann. Enough said, I reckon, on this one. Now, I will go into the weeds a little bit on this one. There are some beakers and test tubes to unpack here. Montague is on debut in the UFC. She's 6-0. She's undefeated. However, she has, as usual, beaten nobody. But I will say she has won her last 6 in a row by rear naked choke, which is kind of crazy. And another crazy fact that I dug up is that out of her last 19 fights, including her amateur record, she's won by submission in 14 of them, mostly rear naked chokes. I'll reiterate, Luana Carolina lost to Molly McCann by flatline spinning elbow KO. I'm going with Michelle Montague by round 2 rear naked choke submission. Let's keep going. Jamie Mullarkey versus Rolando Bedoya. This one's going down at 155 lightweight. Wow, I cannot believe I'm about to pick Jamie Mullarkey to win a fight in big 2025. But here we are. Bedoya is shite. He's lost all 3 of his fights in the UFC. He must be pretty close to being cut. He lost to Jai Herbert, he lost to Song Kanan, and he lost to Chaos Williams, which I think is probably the worst of all the 3 of those. Maybe Jai Herbert is not that great either. Mullarkey's definitely past his prime, and he's never really been that good, unfortunately. And I feel like he's pretty small at lightweight. He could easily be a featherweight. In fact, I think he used to be a featherweight, and he might have even fought Volk at one time, I believe, in an amateur career or a past life. Bedoya he's shit. He's just too wild and not technical enough on the feet. I could definitely see Mullarkey clipping him a few times and winning rounds closely, but clearly in this fight, Bedoya is there to be hit. Jai Herbert pieced him up. That says everything that needs to be said. I think Mullarkey's going to mix in the grappling here too. He took down Francisco Prado with a nice double leg, and he had some top control in that fight. And look, Prado isn't that good, but he's like a tank little Drew Dober blockhead looking motherfucker. It's good signs for me. I reckon Mullarkey's fight IQ and his strategy is okay. It's acceptable. It's decent. He's coached at that same sort of gym as the other. I think he's at CKB as well. He'd have to be. I think he's going to be able to win this just by having a better fight plan and a better IQ. There's a decent chance that Mullarkey's chin is gone and that he's just done. He has had a few pretty bad performances lately. He got chinned by Mauricio Rufy and absolutely schooled in that fight. And he also got chinned pretty bad by Nasrat Hakparast. And like I said, Rufy done him bad in that fight, like life-changing, career-altering damage in that fight. I don't think Bedoya is anywhere near Rufy's threat level on the feet, and that's why I feel a bit more comfortable picking Jamie Mullarkey. I'm going to go Mullarkey by decision with a bit of wrestling thrown in, a bit of dominance, like a few good moments on the feet as well, but nothing special here. I think this is going to be a pretty low-level fight, and I'm going to go with Jamie Mullarkey, but I'm not very confident here. But he's the Aussie. He should get it done. Next up is Colby Thicknesse versus Josias Musasa at 135. I think these boys are pretty well matched as well. They're both coming off bad losses in their UFC debuts. Thicknesse, his wasn't as bad. He lost to Alexandra Topuria, Ilya's big brother, I think he is, who's pretty decent and is well coached, and he's got a little bit of Ilya in him. He's by no means on the same level as Elliot Topuria, but he showed in that fight that he was pretty decent. And Musasa, though, he lost to Carlos Vera by submission, and it wasn't just by submission. He actually got head kicked, like KO slept, and then like clubbed and subbed by Carlos Vera. So out of those two losses, to Topuria's big bro and to Carlos Vera, who's like Ryan Hall's big bro, I don't know which of those is worse. I mean, I think I do, and it's losing to Carlos Vera, I think. So Colby Thicknesse, who's a bit of a, had a bit of name value before his loss to Topuria. He's a decent up-and-coming Aussie prospect. He kind of got walked down and out-grappled in that fight against Topuria. I do think Topuria is pretty decent, but Colby held his own in that fight without ever really threatening him. It was not really a great performance, but I think he was outgunned in firepower by Topuria in that fight. Musasa's loss, while it was to a worse opponent, it was a little bit fluky. He was tagging Carlos Vera up in that fight and kind of styling on him. And then he got clipped with like a weird offbeat timing head kick around the guard that kind of messed him up, and he couldn't recover in time. He was just dazed, and Vera latched up the rear naked choke, and Musasa couldn't do much about it. So this Thicknesse versus Musasa fight, I reckon it's a 50-50 fight, this one. Musasa's probably a bit more explosive and has more tools to get a finish, I think. But I don't know if he's got the level of heart and grit to get it done if Colby comes prepared to scrap and have a bit of a throwdown with him. I think based on heart and fight IQ and a little bit of intangible home crowd advantage, I'm going to go with Colby Thicknesse by a decision or a late rounds TKO. I could see this fight being a poor man's Mason Jones versus Balaji Oki, something like that. I got Colby Thicknesse by late round TKO or 29-28 decision. Should be a good fight. Next up, we got Rowston versus Andre Petroski. This is going down at 185, and we got Rowston, who is a decently hyped upcoming prospect out of CKB as well. He's the local boy. I shouted him out in one of our previous vids as a Aussie fighter who was having his hit out on the Contender Series. So he's made it through the Contender Series here. He's getting a decent step up in competition from the Contender Series, and now he's facing Andre Petroski, who is kind of the lord of the unskilled blockheads at middleweight. A lot of people are picking Petroski here. He's a $1.71 favourite at the moment. even though we haven't seen a lot from Cam, I've never really been that impressed by Andre Petroski in his career. He had some pretty bad performances in the UFC. He got TKO'd by Michel Pereira, knocked out by Jacob Malkoon's hip, which was a weird one, and outstruck by Edmund Shabazian. I'm kind of going on vibes for this one. I can see Cam Rowston being the fresher, hungrier, more keen fighter. He'll want a big win here in front of his home Aussie crowd in his first big fight in the UFC. I think he'll want to win. He'll want to win more than Petroski will, and that will be a factor. He's got nasty submissions, and I think this will be the deciding factor in this fight. We've seen that Petroski, he can wrestle, but he's not that dangerous on the ground. He wastes opportunities, and I think Rowston will find one of those opportunities. I'm going to go with a club and sub by Rowston. I think he'll get some work done on the feet as well. Petroski striking's nothing flash either, so I'll go Cam Rowston sub round 1 or 2 after knocking down Petroski or just landing some damage that puts him on the feet, or maybe Petroski's failed to take down, or just gets in a bad position, and Rowston will find a rear naked choke finish and that gets the crowd up and about and get it done. Rowston as an underdog, he's going to be my dog of the week too, as you would have seen. So yeah, let's go Cam Rowston round 1 or 2 submission or TKO. Up to the next fight on the card. This is a big one. This one should have a bit of attention on it, and I like both of these guys. This is Jonathan Micallef versus Oban Elliot at 170 pounds welterweight. Not a huge amount of tape on either of these guys. I think maybe it's Micallef's second or third fight in the UFC and Oban's third or fourth. Micallef is a southpaw. He's a bit of an awkward, explosive, dynamic striker. He's got good body kicks, and he unleashed them against Kevin Josias in that fight. Micallef is there to hit, though, and he wears visible damage pretty well on his face, as in he marks up pretty easy. He does have the dick kick head kick combo like he used against Kevin Josias up his sleeve. I think he dropped Josias in that fight with the head kick dick kick combo, or dick kick head kick, I think it was. So Oban's got to watch out for that definitely. He doesn't want to get dropped by the old head dick kick head kick combo. Oban himself is coming off a pretty devastating loss and a momentum killer against Seok Hyun Ko, who just out-grappled him and smudged him to a dominant decision. He got judo thrown very easily in that fight. I was kind of surprised how easily Seok Hyun Ko got done with Oban Elliot. So I don't know if that sort of killed Oban's stocks a bit, or maybe just showed that Seok Hyun Ko is a decent prospect. I think Oban got a little bit exposed in the wrestling in that fight. He was on a decent streak against lower tier opponents who he'd beaten, like Basil Hafez and Preston Parsons and Val Woodburn, but that's probably the most jobber fucking 3 names that have ever been uttered in a single UFC sentence. Maybe you could add Weston Wilson in there, and it might be the Mount Rushmore of jobbers in the lower weight classes of the UFC. Basil Hafez, Preston Parsons, and Val Woodburn is who that Oban has beaten. So maybe Oban's never been that good. Micallef here has a 5-inch reach advantage, which is, I think, it's going to be huge and could actually be a problem for Oban in this fight. I think Oban's hands are better and a bit more nasty than Micallef. But I reckon Micallef's going to give him some problems in this fight. Micallef showed some good judo, submission offense, and top control against Adu in his fight in the Contender Series as well. I think Oban is good, but I can see Micallef being a bit too precise and having a better fight IQ in this one. I could see this being a close split decision or something where both guys have moments. Oban could prove that he's a bit tougher. I'm worried about here, but I think Micallef has got more ways to win in this fight, and I'm gonna trust in Jonathan Micallef here, getting a close, tough, gritty 29-28 decision that could go either way, and maybe this one does go that way and goes the other way anyway. It could be Oban by decision, could be an option as well. But I'm going to trust in Micallef with a 5-inch reach advantage. I think he's got the tools to keep Oban at bay, and I think he's a better wrestler as well. So this could be also to be a Micallef wrestling victory as well. So I'm going to stick with Jonathan Micallef. I think he's a decent prospect. Let's keep going up to Loma Lookboonmee versus Alexia Thainara. This fight will be at women's strawweight. I think that's 115 pounds. I don't know, man. I like Loma Lookboonmee, but she's a big underdog here for some reason. Thainara has a very decent ground game and some submission ability, which I guess is what people are probably reading into this one. It's really hard to know how much to read into her performances, though. She beat Molly McCann, took her down very easily and just smashed her from the top. She had a decent heavy top game and just calmly worked her way to a dominant position and got the sub there. But it's Molly McCann. It's Molly the Can. She's out of the UFC for a reason. If you can't even hang it, with the bottom feeders at women's straw weight, then yeah, you're going to get cut. You're going to go be working back at the drive-through. Look, Loma Lookboonmee can be out grappled, but she's got a bit of heart. I will say that about Loma. I like her heart and her grittiness and her toughness. She showed it against Elise Reed, where she pushed through some adversity early to submit Elise, who's a pretty tough character herself. Loma's got decent jiu-jitsu and decent judo throws, and she can out-muscle her opponent. She's a stocky little, nuggety little thing. Like she did against Bruna Brazil, where she took her down early and stuffed her takedowns, and then once she was able to establish a bit of wrestling control or dominance or superiority, she just began to piece her up on the feet as well. And that's what Lookboonmee will be looking to do in this fight. She'll want to keep it on the feet. She'll want to keep it standing and do her work on the feet. I like Loma. I don't know if I can trust her to beat a grappling jiu-jitsu specialist here in Thainara, who's going to be looking to take her down constantly, in my opinion. Loma's strength could be a factor in stuffing these takedowns, but I think eventually Alexia Thainara is going to get her down, get her back, and get like a round 2 or 3 submission. Unfortunately, if Loma can stuff all the takedowns, she probably will win by decision. That's a big if, though. I unfortunately can see Thainara being safe and sticking with the wrestling and the grappling game plan and winning by a submission or decision. I'm gonna go against my heart here and say that Alexia Thainara wins this one by a submission or a grappling based decision. All right, moving on up the card to the headliner of the prelims, which is Navajo Sterling versus Rodolfo Bellato. Easy pick for me, this one, boys. I am snapping up that Navajo Sterling money line at $1.43. Respectfully, Bellato is shit. He's gutless, and he will happily bring shame upon his family and his name to keep his pathetic UFC career alive. He was losing on the feet to Paul Craig, and he wanted out. He took his opportunity to tap out to the upkick from Craig. He's bitch made. He should have been cut for that piss weak performance, and I reckon he'll be cut after this one. I think Navajo Sterling is still a bit raw, and I can see him getting fraud checked eventually by a good wrestler, but I think this is the type of matchup that he should win comfortably. Bellato is not a good wrestler. For some reason, I thought he was because he was Brazilian, but he ain't shit on the ground, and he's got very poor fight IQ. Unless Bellato, all of a sudden, just has great fight IQ in wrestling and he becomes the fighter that he always was meant to be, and that Paul Craig performance was just the linchpin, the big epic moment in his career that changed everything, then, unless that miraculously happens, I can see Bellato just getting pieced up and put down bad by Navajo Sterling. Sterling is coming off 2 okay wins over Ivan Erslan and Tuco Tuckshop. Gelato is coming off that no contest to Paul Craig and then a draw with Jimmy Crute before that. That should tell you all that you need to know. Round 1 TKO for Navajo Sterling. Lock of the week. Lock it in. This one is free money. Gamble responsibly. Next fight up the card, we have got big dog Justin Tafa versus Louis Sutherland, another emerging talent with a 0-0-0 record and no picture. No, that's he's also 0 foot 0 inches tall, and he has no legs and no arms. Louis Sutherland versus Justin Tafa starting off the main card, I believe, at 265. And Tafa will be doing well to cut to 265. So I did a little bit of research on this one. Louis Sutherland's coming off a big win for the title at LFL. Low-level promotion, I think it stands for. Low-level fat losers, something like that. No, it's a legit fight thing called LFL. It's a low-level promotion, and the guy he knocked out was definitely nothing special at all. But hear me out. He's making his UFC debut here in the UFC against Justin Tafa, who is probably the better of the Tafa bros, the more well-liked one anyway. I just think this guy's is slowly blob morphing into Mark Hunt as he gets older. He's basically like being mixed up in most Australian fans' memory. I don't know. I'm just saying that I've never seen Justin Tafa and Mark Hunt in the same room. Yeah, so the Tafa bros have kind of cooked it lately. I think Junior was supposed to be fighting on this card and he's pulled out now. They're supposed to be the co-main event. Justin Tafa's just blobbing them around the place, talking shit on Twitter and that. The Justin Tafa of 2025 is not exactly striking fear into the heart of his opponents, is he? Not in the way that he used to. He had an eye poke, like no contest against Austin Lane. His last two losses are to Carl Williams and Taliesin Teixeira, which is showing where he's at right now. He's washed. He's over the hill. He's struggling to cut to heavyweight. I don't think it's long before we see both of the Tafa bros boxing NRL players in the washed Aussie boxing scene. I can just see Justin Tafa versus Paul Gallen as he comes out of retirement for the Aussie heavyweight strap type shit. Look, I don't think Louis Sutherland's that good, but he looks kind of juiced up. Like he's been on the sauce, and that's not really policed on the regional scene that well. He looks angry. He looks like he's got hands. So if he's half smart and half athletic, he'll kick Tafa's legs. He'll grapple with him. He'll take him down. If he's retarded, he might stand and bang and get chinned by Tafa. I could see that happening as well. That's if he's retarded. We don't have the ability to know the IQ of these new fighters on the scene. So it's a low-level toss-up heavyweight fight. Like all Justin Tafa fights, we might as well flip a coin and go with the guy, Louis Sutherland, the guy with momentum, the new guy, the new untested thing. I just can't really see it within my heart of hearts to pick Justin Tafa confidently in a fight. I need to see something drastically different from the Tafa bros before I can start picking him. Sutherland's going to win by kicking his legs, frustrating him, staying at range, dodging the big overhand slow shots, taking him down and pounding Tafa out in round 1 or 2 in a vintage just Tafa bros shit performance like their last few have been. I've got Louis Sutherland by TKO round 1 or 2. All right, we have Tom Nolan versus Charlie Campbell. This is a good fight. These boys are well matched as well, and they're both on a pretty decent little early career run in the UFC. They're both skillful, explosive, dynamic sort of guys. This is at lightweight, by the way, 155, if I didn't say that. Tom Nolan is on a 3-fight win streak over Slava Claus, Vyacheslav Borshev, Alex Reyes, and Victor Martinez. And before that, he lost to Nicholas Motta on debut. That was Tom Nolan's debut in the UFC. He got chinned pretty bad immediately by Nicholas Motta. Charlie Campbell is on his own 3-fight winning streak. He also beat Alex Reyes in his little run there, and he beat Trevor Peake by decision in his last fight, and some other bum outside the UFC. He's on a 3-fight win streak, but only 2 fights in the UFC, I think. He lost his Contender Series fight to Chris Duncan, which is not too bad of a look. Chris Duncan's pretty decent. This is a tough fight to predict. I reckon that Nolan has the technicality edge while Charlie Campbell's more explosive and wild. He's got good knees in the clinch and body kicks. He throws in combinations. He swings big fight-ending punches. And he also mixes in takedowns and a bit of wrestling. He's more than willing to slug it out and get into a dogfight. And I think he'll be looking to do so against Tom Nolan, who prefers to keep it a bit more technical. However, Nolan can scrap too. He showed that in his gritty performance against Borshev. Wasn't the most impressive performance from Tom Nolan in terms of skill, but he did choose to fight Slava in his happy place, and he still did enough to win that fight clearly. I thought it was a 29-28, or I believe that some judges gave it 30-27. Not totally impressive, but, Slava Claus is decent on the feet when he's not worrying about the threat of wrestling. And if you don't just sub him in the first round, basically. If you can sub him in the first round, then you might as well. But Tom Nolan chose to stand and bang, and we got an okay scrap. I think Tom Nolan wanted to test himself and prove himself a bit in that one. Look, the Nicholas Motta KO is a little bit of a worry. He got chinned early and couldn't recover in time in that fight, and Motta got him out of there in round one. But that was Nolan's debut in the UFC, and he probably had some nerves there. And Motta's decent. He just had an awesome scrap with some other mad dog that was like a sick fight. Esteban Ribovic or something like that. I can't remember who it was. Charlie Campbell is there to be hit, I reckon. That's what I'm thinking. He swings aggressively and overextends himself. And Nolan's, Nolan's chin could get tested in this fight. He could get sparked out by Charlie Campbell. I wouldn't be surprised if Charlie Campbell lands at least a couple of good significant strikes. Because I do think this will be a striking fight primarily, with maybe a little bit of opportunistic grappling to be had. But I think whoever fights the smartest and uses all their tools at the right time wins this fight. Like, fucking no shit, Sherlock. But you know what I mean. I think these guys are well matched, and it's whoever seizes the moment on the day will be the winner. I'm going to back Tom Nolan to win by TKO. It could be touch and go though. Not all that confident with this pick. I do like Tom Nolan. He's got the home crowd advantage here. I know I keep saying that, but I think intangibles do count for something. And with the intangibles on his side in a fairly otherwise evenly matched fight, I'm going to stick with Tom Nolan by TKO, maybe a decision. Aussie all the way, mate. Let's fucking do this, boys. Speaking of, Jake Matthews, fucking mate, Jake Matthews, fucking Jakey Matt, Jake the fucking snake up the Jake bar. This should be the co-main. Maybe they have made it the co-main. I think after Tarfa, Junior Tarfa pulled out, they might be rejigging things around a bit. But this one should be the co-main. You got to put some respect on both of these boys. Jake Matthews is currently a heavy favourite at $1.17 to Neil Magny's $5.10. That's disrespectful to Mag Dog Magny, bro. This is one of those fights that Magny could do anything. Like he's a crafty old dude. He's had 30 wins in the UFC for a reason. I think Jake Matthews should win though. So he's therefore likely to lose. They're both these guys are that type of guy who they win the ones they shouldn't and they lose the ones they shouldn't. Magny's career is really difficult to predict. Occasionally he just puts in like a random vintage performance and wins. I reckon Magny will cause Jake some problems in this fight. Jake Matthews' latest performance against Chidi Njokuani, it was over really fast, and we didn't really get to see how he looked. He looked good, don't get me wrong, and he latched that rear naked choke up on Chidi and got a quick and clear round one submission. But Magny, he could cause some problems here, I reckon. He's not completely done, Neil Magny. He loses to guys who have got big, nasty power and he gets put out bad. I don't think Jake Matthews is really that kind of fighter, though. Like Magny's got long, wiry arms, and he could find the chin of Jake Matthews. He's got a 7-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch height advantage. Those are dangerous numbers for Jake, who will be wanting to box and strike with Magny in this fight. Although we've seen some evolutions to his game, so maybe Matthews does look to come in and wrestle Magny here, but I kind of doubt it. He'll want to have like a slow-paced, respectful type of fight with Magny, I reckon. I don't see him going out there and going full schizo, desperate to win mode. Maybe he will. Maybe we'll see Jake Matthews get a finish. I don't know about this fight. I think the odds are all stacked in Jake Matthews' favour is a little bit concerning to me because like a lot of people are picking Jake Matthews and these are the ones he's been known to lose. There's a reason why he hasn't quite made it to that upper echelon of the welterweight division in his career. I do think that Jake Matthews is in his prime though, and he's the hometown guy. If he's fight smart, he'll be trying to he'll want to drop Magny and use the combinations to get inside to look for a takedown. Like he'll want this if it is going to go to the floor. He want it on his own terms because Magny will have a reach advantage, and he's got some crafty boxing, and Matthews won't want to risk that. It's a tricky matchup for Jake Matthews. That's why I'm a little bit think that he's a little bit overhyped at those short odds. I'm going to go with a round 1 or 2 submission or ground and pound TKO for Jake Matthews, though. I'm going to put my respect on him. I think he's going to get this one done just off being a little bit more explosive and powerful and having better finishing instincts than Neil Magny. And I don't think Magny's going to have enough damage on his shots to drop Matthews bad on the feet before Matthews can get to him and put him out. So, yeah, I think Matthews by finish is the pick here, but I think it should be a good fight, and the odds should definitely not be that short in Jake Matthews' favour. This should be more like a 2-1 for Jake Matthews, I reckon. All right, we're going Jake Matthews by finish. Let's go. 3 fights remain, and the featured fight on this card is Jimmy Crute versus Ivan Erslan at 205 pounds light heavyweight. Jimmy Crute is on the main card in the featured fight slot in Big 2025, boys. Let's go. This is where we're at with this one. This card's decent. It's a good Aussie fan service type of card, this one. Jimmy Crute's fighting Ivan Erslan, who is 9-2 in the UFC. He's lost to Navajo Sterling and E1 Kutelaba. He was in both of those fights, Erslan. I didn't really like his fight IQ or his finishing instincts or his skill set in general. And I didn't really sense a huge urgent will to win for Erslan, which is a big problem, I think, if you're in the UFC. Erslan is the archetype of like a light heavyweight jobber, like an old school light heavyweight, like early 2000s bloke. He's fodder for these type of guys with some finishing instinct to finish. And if Jimmy Crute can't get it done against this guy, he's done, which could be a possibility too. So these boys are fighting for their careers and for their their safety net in the UFC. We saw Navajo Sterling out-wrestle Erslan in moments too, and I believe Sterling is a bit more of a striking specialist. Maybe he's decently well-rounded, but he's a striking kind of guy. He's a kickboxer. And that there shows the level of Ivan Erslan's wrestling if he's getting out-scrambled and out-grappled and out cage controlled by Navajo Sterling. He's a big, strong dude, though, I'll take it, Sterling. I just reckon Ivan Erslan looks underwhelming in all areas, not just wrestling. Like in general, I haven't seen anything from him that makes me want to pick him. Maybe like he's durable and he's got a good chin, but it pains me. It doesn't pain me like to pick Jimmy Crute, but I think this is a clear Jimmy Crute win. Crute has had a mixed bag lately. He's had some cherry-picked opponents and a few opportunities, a bit of Dana White privilege to help get him back in the mix at 205. His last few have included a win over Marcin Prachnio last up, where he looked pretty good and got a nasty round 2 armbar finish, I think it was. It was an armbar finish in some round. He also had 2 draws in his last few fights, one to Alonzo Menifield, which they ran back, and one to Rodolfo Gelato in his friggin' insane career. The 2 losses that Jimmy Crute has had have been to Alonzo Menifield in their rematch and to Jamal Hill 5 fights ago by KO. Do I think that Ivan Erslan is on the level of an Alonzo Menifield or a Jamal Hill? No, I do not think that at all. I think Crute, despite being shit, will push Erslan up against the cage. He'll clasp his hands together. He'll chain wrestle him to the ground. He'll smudge him and he'll abuse Erslan's lack of get-up game or submission defense, his lack of any real X factor, and I can just see this being a typical Jimmy Crute boring smudge fest against the cage in round 1 with Crute landing some rabbit punches and having like a dominant and somewhat pathetic looking round 1, kind of like a Hamzat DDP type of round, and then he'll be angling towards the same thing in round 2, and then Erslan will just gas out and quit. And Crute will win by an inevitable boring submission or some shit decision, dominant decision. I reckon submission for Jimmy Crute is pretty live. Yeah, I just don't see how Erslan wins this fight. it's sad to say for him because it's Jimmy Crute, but I reckon Crute beats him, and then Ivan Ersland gets cut. He's not UFC material, even though light heavyweight is very shallow. Yeah, he's going to lose to Jimmy Crute, and that will be probably the end of him. So let's go, Jimmy Crute. Aussie. We're going to pick a fair few Aussies on this card. Speaking of, currently sitting in the co-main event. I don't know if that's where it's going to finally end up. If it does, respect to these boys. I don't think they deserve to be the co-main, but I wouldn't be mad if it was. We've got Jack Jenkins versus Ramon Taveras at 145 at featherweight. Jack Jenkins is returning, I hope, if he makes it into the cage. We got this one a little bit high up the card, really. Not these boys' fault, just the card's fault a little bit. But with that being said, Jack Jenkins is a definite fan favourite here in Australia. But yeah, pretty high spot up the card for these two guys for the level they're at, but good on them. Both of these fellas coming off losses. Jack Jenkins has had a disappointing couple of years in the UFC, to be fair. He broke his arm or his shoulder or something against Chepe Mariscal, and he got pretty fucked up in that fight. We didn't see him for a while after that, maybe about a year. And then he comes back and gets a dominant win over Herbert, the pervert Burns. One of the freest wins in the UFC. You can't take too much away from that. Yes, he disposed of Burns, but this is Herbert Burns we are talking about. Herbert Burns. That was an absolute layup for Jack Jenkins, and it didn't show us where he's at in the UFC. And especially because he went out and lost to Gabriel Santos straight after that by submission in round 3 in pretty dominant fashion, and that was pretty underwhelming by Jack. That was in February this year, and we haven't seen him since. But he should be fresh and ready to go for this fight. Ramon Taveras is decent. I'll give him that. He's decent. He's come out of the other side of this legacy-defining saga he had with the great Sirhi City. With a loss and a win. They're 1-1. Maybe we've got to run that trilogy back. I think they're 1-1, or maybe he's 2-0. But not only that, he also has a win over the great Cortavius Romeus. So we're dealing with a pretty top dog here. In his last bout, though, he did get the momentum halted by dangerous Davy Grant. You can excuse that. It's Davy Grant. He's a G. That was a close tit-for-tat striking battle and a bit of a war where Davy Grant was landing some good kicks to the head, body and legs. And I reckon that's important when breaking down this matchup. The damage to the kicks and the Davy Grant was landing on Ramon Taveras are a big factor here. That's good intel for predicting this fight. Because David Grant, while he's good and he's a crafty old vet, he's not the most fast or dynamic striker, and he was able to piece Ramon Taveras up at times in that fight and win a clear decision over him. Taveras has decent straight shots and he's tough, but I would say he's a little bit one-dimensional. To beat Jack Jenkins, I think you need a little bit of X factor and a few tricks up your sleeve. Like some wrestling, a submission game, or like just a bit of a varied tool bag. Like you need a few tools to take out Jack, I reckon. Ramon Taveras, he seems content to just trade punches and kicks and look to pick his shots. I think if you're standing in the middle of the cage trying to kickbox with Jack Jenkins, you're going to be in for a bad time. Taveras will be sitting in southpaw with his lead leg planted, looking to land straight shots, and that Jack Jenkins is just going to want to throw those heavy mule kicks and just piece up the leg of Ramon Taveras. I think once Taveras has taken a few big leg kicks, we'll see it start to be one-way traffic. Taveras has even got like a tattoo right on the spot where Jack Jenkins is going to be targeting him. And I think we're going to get a vintage performance from Jack Jenkins, and we might even see another one of his signature leg kick TKO wins. I've got to give it to Ramon Taveras for being tough and gritty, and it will take a lot of damage to finish him, I think. But I see Jenkins being able to do it. I think there's going to be too many holes. I can see too many holes in Ramon Taveras' skills, and there's going to be opportunities for Jack Jenkins to find some shots. unless Tavares has like a very different game plan to what we've been seeing with him in the UFC, I can see this being a clear TKO or a points win for Jack Jenkins based on striking. I'm pretty confident on this one. Considered it for the lock of the week, but I've decided to go with Navajo Sterling instead. That's more just based on the caliber of opponent that he's versing. It's worked for me the last couple of weeks. I think that if Davey Grant's giving you trouble with leg kicks, you're going to have a bad time against Jack Jenkins, who is one of the nastiest leg kickers in the UFC, especially in the featherweight division. Like, he's got pound for pound one of the heaviest low kicks, and it goes to show the amount of guys he's finished with leg kicks. Jenkins is a big favourite here, but we've seen him have a few disappointing performances in that favourite spot. I reckon he's back on this weekend. Jack's going to get this one done. Let's go, Jack. We're going to go with Jack Jenkins, leg kick TKO in his typical style, and after a gritty and good, tough showing by Ramon Tavares, but I think it'll be a clear Jack Jenkins win in this one. Let's go, Jack Jenkins. And that finally brings us to the main event of this card. Man, lots of good stuff to talk about in this card. There's some sleeper fights on here, and I think there's going to be some good performances on this card. Speaking of, this is a banger alert as well. We've got a sick fight on our hands here for the main event. Very, very lucky to have these boys duking it out in the main event. There could have been a lot of other shit. Oh, look, to be honest, there could have been other better fights that we could have got for Australia. Australia is a loyal fan base, and they're owed some good fights over here. And, we've got a lot of good champs and a lot of good representation in the UFC. So for us to get this Perth card with two blokes who are not even Australian on it it's a little bit of a kick in the guts, but I think the UFC has by far made up for it with the level of fan service they've done with some of these Aussie fighters and the good matchups that they're getting. So hopefully the Aussie vibe is going to be good at this point, and the Aussies who have kind of cleaned up and towed up their opponents, and they'll have done really well on this card. And then we get to relax and just watch a main event that, it has a clear favourite, but the Aussies will be a little bit more comfortable with however this one goes, because Ulberg is not Australian. He's a Kiwi fella. But those Kiwi fellas, those Usos over there, they're one of us, and there's going to be a lot of Aussies and Kiwis getting behind Carlos Ulberg. And I think Dominick Reyes will be coming into enemy territory. This fight is going down at 205 at light heavyweight, and it's the biggest fight of the night. It's the two biggest names on the card by far. Two highly ranked, well respected members of that light heavyweight division, contenders, both in the mix there at light heavyweight. Dominick Reyes on his second kind of title run, and he's come back from the brink of being cut from the UFC and spiraling out of control. But here he is in a big main event taking on Carlos Ulberg. Respect to both of these boys. We've got Ulberg closing as a pretty decent favourite in this one. He's currently at about $1.41 to Reyes' $2.82. I expect that to blow out to around $3 by the fight day, fight night. I need a good pick here in the main event. We haven't hit one in the last 2 weeks. Last 3 weeks, if you count the kind of unofficial prediction of Johnny Walker versus Ming Yang Zhang. So I've got the last 3 main events wrong, and I need to pull one out this weekend. I'm getting a bit desperate. So I've done a fair bit of research on these two. Obviously, we're talking about Dominick Reyes here. He's the man who beat John Jones. The man that beat John Jones. He beat John Jones in that fight. But we're also talking about the Dominick Reyes, who's had one of the worst downfalls that the UFC has ever seen. But we're also talking about Dominick Reyes, the guy who's on a big 3-fight win streak. 3 big finishes by TKO, and he's got a huge amount of momentum. 3 finishes in a row by over top contenders in the light heavyweight division, and that sounds amazing and impressive when he's on smoke. Dominick Reyes making his comeback, but who has he beaten lately? Let's have a bit of a dig into that, because after those 2 big losses to Yuri and Ryan fucking Spann, and we all thought that Dominick Reyes was done, and he basically looked like he was done. And then a little bit of Dana White privilege kicked in. Now listen to this. His 3 wins that he's had here are Dustin Jacoby, Anthony Smith, he whooped his ass into retirement, and then he chinned Nikita Krylov. Now, just soak that in for a second. Dustin Jacoby, Anthony Smith, and Nikita Krylov. As much as we are all stoked that Dominick Reyes is back, and we are all enjoying his comeback title run, you got to look a little bit objectively at that. You got to look at the blokes he's beating lately. It's Jacoby, who's the resident jobber, like journeyman, one-dimensional striker of 205. You got the rotten, decaying corpse of Anthony Lionheart Smith, who just spent the whole fight against Reyes in armadillo pose and got pounded out easily and embarrassingly with no resistance whatsoever. And then Reyes just immediately chinned Nikita Krylov in round 1. I'll give it to Dom. He looked pretty decent in that fight, but, Krylov made him look good. He just overextended badly multiple times with his chin on a platter, and any decent fighter with heavy hands would have probably slept Krylov then and there. We just saw Bogdan Guskov do it, and Dominick Reyes was able to do it. He just stuck his fist out and Krylov just co-angered himself on it basically and he knocked him out. It's tough to really read too much into Dom's recent performances here. Let's stack him up a little bit against Ulberg's recent form. Well, his UFC form, he's got a lot more fights in the UFC. He's 12-1, and this is actually already going to be his 13-1, sorry, and this is going to be his, I think, 10th fight in the UFC. So some of the names that Carlos Ulberg has put away are Tafon Nchukwi, Nikolai Negamarianu, Ihor Pateria, Darwoon Jung, Alonzo Menefield, Volkan Ozdemir, and most recently, Jan Blachowicz. That is a big difference on recent wins especially. Ulberg's only loss came to Kennedy Nzechukwu in a fight in which Ulberg was doing pretty well, but Kennedy just managed to weather the storm, pour it on him, and then break him in late round two, and then landed a huge right hook that slept Ulberg pretty bad. So Carlos Ulberg can be hit. He sometimes keeps his hands low and his chin up in the air. Against a guy with big power and tight straight punches in Dominick Reyes, this could be a problem. I do think Ulberg has improved a lot since then. In that fight, he got drawn into a wild brawl with Kennedy Nzechukwu, and it was also way back in 2021, and he gassed out pretty bad in that fight too. He's been putting in some good work at CKB, Ulberg. His 2 decision wins over Ozdemir and Jan are the ones that we can look at to analyse here in terms of relevant wins. I think Ulberg in those 2 fights did still look hittable, and he took a little bit of damage from Ozdemir and from Jan, but they were just like Ulberg slowed those fights down to really slow output fights, and that's where he wants this fight to be. They weren't very exciting fights, and it seemed, though, that his opponents were just happy to kickbox with him at range, and that's Ulberg's preferred fighting style. Ulberg, I can actually see a little bit of Volk in the way that he in the way that he defends his striking defense. He keeps the right hand cocked and tries to get into the flow state like Volk, and then when he backs up, he evades a bit like Volk, where he pulls back his chin, and that right hand like stays cocked there, ready to kind of block or counter. And look, we've seen that style get worked out lately. Like people have watched the tape on Volk and worked him out. He leaves openings for damage, and we saw that with Topuria and Islam both capitalising on their opportunities. I think it's weird to say, but I think Ulberg has a very similar... He's got like a mix of a striking style between Volk and Izzy, which we've seen the decline of both of those two guys. It will be interesting to see how Reyes approaches this. If he tries kickboxing with Ulberg, I think he loses a clear decision. I think if Reyes just tries to kickbox and go toe-to-toe and tit for tat, he'll be leaning into Ulberg's trap, and it wouldn't surprise me if he lost by decision or a TKO. I think, though, that Dominick Reyes does have the ability to find the chin of Ulberg. If he does land a clean, straight right shot, Ulberg's chin is pretty good, but it won't matter if Dom lands completely clean because he's got heavy hands, and this is light heavyweight. These are big boys. I don't know. It's very tempting to pick Reyes here. He's got the momentum and the style to beat Ulberg. I reckon Dom has a good chance to win by TKO early, and he might rock Ulberg early. And I don't know if Ulberg's got the heart or the urgency to survive a big moment from Dominick Reyes. I think Ulberg is the much more technically skilled and diverse fighter. But I can see this fight ending in a TKO, though, which has me leaning to Reyes. But then again, Reyes, his chin is not that good. If it goes 5 rounds, it's definitely going to be a 50-45 or a 49-46 to Ulberg, if it does go 5 rounds. But Reyes only needs one moment and he can actually get it done. It's back to the head and the heart situation. At UFC Paris, I went with my heart, with Baralho, and I was wrong. At UFC Noche, I went with my fucking bald head and picked the bald head of Jean Silva, and I was wrong. This time, I'm not going with my head or my heart. I'm going with my nutsack, and I am officially predicting Dominick Reyes to win by TKO. He's going to land a straight right hand on Ulberg early on, round 1 or 2, dropping him bad, following up, and Ulberg's going to be unable to recover in time to make an effort to survive. A bit of a weak stoppage, I reckon, is going to happen, but no argument. Safe, right thing by the referee. Dominick Reyes, he's going to win a big main event in Australia in 2025. It's happening, boys. Ulberg is going to be looking to skirt around the outside of the cage, doing his thing, teeping, jabbing, leg kicking, staying safe, trying to go tit for tat in his style. And Dom is not going to have a bar of it. He's going to be like, fuck this, crash in, probably take some shots and lose round 1 or maybe even round 2 or be losing round 2, but then have a big moment reminiscent of a easy chin and getting chinned by Nasruddin Imavov. I reckon Ulberg's going to have his chin on a platter, backing away like Volk. Reyes with that 77-inch long-ass reach, he's going to reach in and, I think land one on Ulberg's chin. Reyes is going to, if he's well coached, again, I say this every week, if these guys are well coached, you'd think they are, but you can't assume it. If he is, though, I reckon he will watch some really good tape on Ulberg and he'll be looking to mix in those straight shots in combination with the looping and the overhand shots, which will I can see, Ulberg getting a bit confused and thrown off by. I reckon we're going to see some straight shots landing early from Reyes that'll get Ulberg's attention. I reckon Reyes will be somewhat ineffective for the majority of the fight and get pieced up a bit, miss a lot of shots, and then just land a big right hook, strong left combination out of nowhere, straight down the pipe that just drops Ulberg and gets him out of there. We're going to have a huge Dominick Reyes redemption moment here in Perth. He's going to crash the party. I like Ulberg, but I reckon he's due to lose. He's not that good, I don't reckon. I'm not sure why Dominick Reyes is going to be able to do it when Jan Blachowicz and Volkan Oezdemir couldn't, but if Kennedy Nzechukwu can survive a storm and get you out of there in the later rounds, Dominick Reyes, who went 5 rounds with John Jones and won, can do it. So I got Dominick Reyes by a random fluke KO in round 2 or 3 after losing the fight. Let's go, Dominick Reyes. I'm getting a pick this week, and Dominick Reyes is going to be one of my new favourite fighters. He already is a fucking legend. Dominick Reyes to beat Carlos Ulberg in a huge upset, spoil the party for the Aussie guys, and get it done by KO with a somewhat questionable, controversial stoppage. All right, boys, that's it for the predictions. I hope we get a few this week. Yes. I've got a safe multi for you here, boys. 3-leg multi this week. The last couple have been a little bit cooked. I'm not going to lie. I've kept things simple this week. The 3 most confident fights, or 3 of the 3 or 4 most confident picks this week. I've got Navajo Sterling getting it done by TKO or decision. I have locked him for a TKO, I think, this week, but decision's not out of the realm of possibilities. That's not a bad double leg to have. Jake Matthews, I think she'll get it done by either TKO or, look, maybe money lines to go there with Matthews. He has got a sneaky submission in him, so maybe TKO or submission actually is a better option than decision, but Magny's a fighter who can always take things to a decision, so I just think Matthews, maybe money line is where it's at there. And Jack Jenkins, I reckon, is going to get a TKO. Maybe decision, but probably a TKO. That's paying about just over $2. A lot more slimmed down this week. My last week video, I messed up and I multiplied the multi odds by 10, so that's why the odds look so insane last weekend. But You would have worked out what I meant. I was kind of thinking in terms of units, but yeah. So this one's a little bit more safe this week. I need to cash one before I can start calling them safe multis. You know what I mean? So let's get a real safe one, cash it, and then we'll branch out a bit more in the future. But yeah, safe multi. I got Sterling, Matthews, and Jenkins. Leroy Danghurst. All right, let's keep running with the Sicko Multi. Once again, we can at least say these ones. I've called them a Sicko Multi from the start. Haven't cashed one of these yet either. Haven't even really gone close. The last couple of weeks of tipping's been pretty rough, let's be honest. I don't think too many people were winning huge bets, big multi-leg multis in the last couple of weeks of cards. There was some pretty outlandish results, I must say. So, but the Sicko Multi, we're not stepping back on it. We're keeping it as a risky business bit of punting that you might fluke one, one out of 5 or 1 out of 10. We'll see. Hopefully we hit one of these soon as well. But the Sicko Multi this week, I've got a 4-legger for you. We've got Cam Rowston, mate. I'm feeling a sub from Cam Rowston. I reckon he's going to get it done in a big way. So we're locking in Cam there. Jonathan Micallef, bro, people will be sleeping on him. People forget, man. Like, this guy, he can have a good performance here against Oban. I think Oban is a fan favourite, and a lot of people like him for his personality and that, but I don't know that he's being correctly rated in terms of his fighting ability. And there's been good signs that I've seen from Jonathan Micallef in his short stint in the UFC. Then I think he's got the qualities and the attributes to be able to get this one done. He as an underdog, and I think he is anyway, but well matched again. So this is a 50-50 fight, and hey, why couldn't it go this way? Jamie Mullarkey, we're chucking him in there. He's on thin ice, but Mullarkey, this is my last roll of the dice on Mullarkey. I think he's got one more win in him here, and he's primed for it with an opponent like Rolando Bedoya. I hope this is not a confident addition, but here he is, Jamie Mullarkey. Look at him. Looks like, I don't know, he's seen some shit. He's worked a few office jobs in his day, so he's not that keen to go back to the office job, but I reckon he'll get it done in some way. Maybe just slap a little nibble on the money line for him there. And then we're chucking in the man Dominick Reyes. I've talked at length about why I think maybe Reyes has a chance here. Not the most confident pick I've ever locked in my life, but I got a bit of a feeling that the Reyes story isn't quite finished just yet. I think there's one more twist or turn in this already twisted and turned story, and I just don't think Ulberg is a title holder. I don't really see Ulberg as being good enough to win the belt. He's too, this sounds weird, but he's too consistent. He hasn't got a high enough ceiling, I don't think. Whereas Dominick Reyes, we know, he has like dead set won a belt before. He beat John Jones for the belt and just never actually touched the belt. He just got robbed like bloody me and my mates get robbed in the golf comps on the weekend in the bloody 2-man Ambrose. But anyway, Reyes, we're going to chuck him in that Sicko Multi. It's spitting out about $25.40 now. That's just the odds weren't loading up properly. I've got them just in the head-to-head setting, but you'll get more than that if you depending on how you frame it. Cool. Righto, that's the Sicko Multi. Last couple of bits here, boys. We got the next week's news forecasts. Got a couple of them last week. Let's see if we can keep them running. Fill your bingo board up with this. We got first headline is Dominick Reyes crashes Perth party, title talk rekindled. It'll be big news. It'll be a big shake-up in the division if Dominick Reyes is to put a straight left on Ulberg's chin, as I think he's going to do. And yeah, that'll definitely make big headlines. I reckon an Ulberg win to a cruisy decision is a very real possibility, but would not be much of a headline. Come on, we've got to lean into the chaos here and go with Dominick Reyes crashing the party. I think the Aussies will have done their job already. Majority of the Aussies will win their fights, and then we'll see Ulberg just fail at the final hurdle there and get taken out. So Dominick Reyes having a win will be the biggest headline coming out of this card. The next biggest one might be Cam Rowston, mate. I reckon he's going to have a good crack. He's versing Andre Petroski. If he doesn't win this one, he's not cut out to be in the UFC. Well, at the top of the division. If you can't beat Petroski, you're not a threat in the division. I don't know that Cam is a huge threat, but he I think he's got a bit more to show us. His story still isn't written either. So I reckon this will be a big part of his story on the weekend. He'll get a big win over Petroski by some ground-based finish, I reckon. And finally, Jimmy Crute says, I'm back. So Jimmy Crute somehow just he must have nudes of Dana White or something, because he just keeps getting easy as matchups and good matchups. And I reckon he's got another one here in even Ursland, and he's gonna say he's back. Now I'm not saying he is back. I'm not saying he's back in title contention or anything like that. But Jimmy Crute will think he is, and when he wins this, he'll try to push that. So, and hey, maybe the UFC will hear him out. So I reckon Jimmy Crute back in the mix is a decent headline there. All right, that's pretty much going to be it. We've got a couple of little shout-outs here at the end here. Fraud Watch, Alice Pereira. Not that she was really much of a prospect, but I do occasionally get fooled with this idea of someone looking good and then therefore being good. Her crimes this week are getting out-dogged by a soccer mum in Montserrat Rendon. I reckon that would have cooked a few multis, that one, and including a few of mine. And finally, the multi-murderer of the week, the bloke who just cooked everything. Alice Pereira was in there too, but Dustin Stoltzfus as a big hope of mine. I had a lot riding on Stoltzfus to win that by decision. I had him as my dog of the week. I thought he could get it done, and I wasn't too far off. But unfortunately, a bit of a lack of fight IQ and finishing instinct and aggression in any way and skill, to be honest, is what caused, is what left Dustin Stoltzfus short of his goal and of my multis hitting. So, Dustin Stoltzfus, you owe me a beer, bruh. Nah, you're all right. All right, fellas, it is time for our weekly segment. It is time for the Wheel of Doom. Ooh, the Wheel of Doom is coming off a big week last week. We spun up the no contest outcome and we put it on the Cedricus Dumas versus Zachary Reese fight, and what do you know? The Wheel of Doom spoke correctly, and we got that one right. Now, not going to lie, I thought that Dumas would have been the one cheating in that fight, but turns out he just got kicked in the dick, and we got a no contest. So the wheel has spoken for last week. What's it going to do this week? Let's find out. Let's see if we can get another big win from the Wheel of Doom. Here we go. All right. Spinning away. What doom shall be inflicted this week, boys? Ooh, we got a corner throws in the towel. Okay. Which fight is going to result in a corner stoppage? Let's have a look. Carlos Ulberg, Dominick Reyes. Nah, I don't see it happening in that one. Look, I think what will happen in order to get a corner stoppage is that the fight just needs to be an absolute arse whooping that the other fighter is too tough to kind of get finished. And looking at down this card, we're looking for some tough guys who are going to take a lot of punishment by the other guy. I could see Bellato. Having a performance where his corner throws in the towel. All these other guys are too tough and too gritty, and I think they'll go out on their shield. I can see Ramon Tavares getting a corner stoppage after his leg gets basically destroyed, but yeah, I think it's going to have to be Rodolfo Gelato. I think he's ridiculous. Looney Tunes run in the UFC is going to continue with draws and eye pokes and fake knockouts and things. I can just see Bellato getting tuned up by Navajo Sterling, getting an absolute pace put on him, getting his eye busted up, and I think at the end of round 1 or 2, we'll have Bellato's corner chuck the little white flag in and submit, and then maybe Bellato can protest it and say, "What? I was going fine. I was good," but he was actually getting his ass kicked. So a fitting recipient of the Wheel of Doom's chaos this week. Bellato's going to get his ass whooped, and then his team is going to throw in the towel. End of round 1 or 2. The wheel has spoken. And I reckon that will just about do it. This video is massive. It's taken me a bit of work, but I've enjoyed every single little bit. Had to put a bit of extra effort in for the Aussie card, mate. Fucking Perth card's going to be sick. Go get amongst it. I wish I was going. I'm going to go to one of them one day, but yeah, they're getting more and more expensive, and Perth is pretty far away from where I'm at. But one day I'll hit one, and let's hope this one's a big card. Punch Ons, we're kicking things off here with some decent predictions. We're hoping to have a better week this week. I still reckon we're one decent card away from a solid purple patch, and we'll get some of these multis cooking ASAP. So if you haven't, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at PunchOnsMMA. Hope you enjoyed this week's content. I'll have some more to come, maybe some last minute changes to the card might need updating, and yeah, I'll keep you posted. So hope you enjoyed the vid, and I hope you enjoy the fights, and yeah, Aussie, oi, 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 let's punch on.